Welcome back to the Inward Bound. I'm Deb, your host today. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to share a gentle disclaimer. In this podcast, I speak openly about trauma, loss, and healing. My goal is to share my personal journey, not to offer you medical or psychological advice. Please listen with care. Be mindful of your emotional state and take breaks or seek support if any part of this episode brings up different feelings. You are not alone, you are safe here, and I honor you for joining me. Let me speak directly to the mothers for a moment. If you're raising a son, this matters more than you know. By the time your little boy is 3 or 4 years old, he is already studying you. He is not just learning words, he is learning what happens when he feels, when he cries, when he gets scared, when he feels embarrassed, when he feels overwhelmed. He is watching your response. If he hears, "You're fine, stop crying, be tough, big boys don't act like that," he may never say it out loud, but a quiet belief can begin forming. My feelings are too much. My softness isn't safe. I should handle this alone. By 5 to 7 years old, identity is forming. And if vulnerability is not welcomed, many boys make a silent vow, "I will never let anyone see me hurt again." And that is where the hardening begins. What looks like anger, what looks like defiance, what looks like shutting down is often just unprocessed hurt. Moms, this is not about blame. This is about awareness. Because awareness gives us power to interrupt the cycle. As we move forward from understanding men who carry deep hurt, we step into the next chapter of my story, the chapter where my mom enters her third marriage. This transition matters because the wounded men we just talked about don't show up only in the world, they show up inside families. They show up as fathers, stepfathers, boyfriends, and husbands. And their pain doesn't stay contained. It spills into the home, into the walls, into the nervous system of every child watching. So before I take you into my mom's third marriage, I want you to hold on to this truth. A hurt man doesn't become hurt in isolation. And a hurt man doesn't stay hurt in isolation. His pain becomes the atmosphere the family breathes. As for a child, that atmosphere becomes the blueprint for how life works. In my story, Mom's third marriage wasn't just another relationship. It was another emotional landscape we were thrown into. Another man carrying his own wounds, another set of dynamics that shaped our sense of safety, identity, and belonging. This bridge matters because understanding the wounded men helps us understand what happened next. How that third marriage shaped us, stretched us, and in many ways broke us. So with compassion, clarity, and honesty, let's step into the story of Mom's third marriage and the impact it had on the children growing up inside it. This is where the next layer begins. We step into one of those chapters that looks ordinary on the outside, but shapes so much on the inside. Mom had married her third husband, and with that came a new house, a new neighborhood, and the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, life would get better. And then came the above-ground swimming pool in the backyard, a symbol of what could have been stability. But as we explore the next part of the story, we'll look deeper at what a child senses long before the adults ever speak the truth. When Mom married her third husband, everything changed all over again. A new man, a new house, a new set of rules, tensions, and hopes none of us dared to say out loud. He walked into this with a clean slate, at least on paper, no ex-wives, no former stepchildren, no history of building a family or managing the emotional weight that comes with it. And that difference mattered. He didn't understand what it meant to join a family already carrying scars. He didn't understand the survival strategies we had already developed. He didn't understand the sensitivity children have to tone, to tension, and to the undercurrent of unspoken emotions. He didn't understand the invisible wounds that came with us, wounds we didn't have words for but felt every day. And in many ways, he wasn't prepared for a woman who had lived through so much already. He wasn't prepared for her triggers, her fears, her defenses, or her longing for stability. He wasn't prepared for the weight she carried and the weight we carried with her. This wasn't just Mom entering her third marriage. It was all of us entering another emotional landscape, another home with its own set of rules, another adult with his own unspoken wounds. We packed up everything we owned again and moved into the house they had just bought together. I remember the feeling of walking into that place for the first time, the floors creaking in a way I didn't recognize, the smell of fresh paint, the way everyone tried to act like it was going to be a new beginning. And just after we moved in, they bought an above-ground swimming pool for the backyard. To a child, that felt huge, like a promise that things might be fun or normal for once. Like maybe this time our family would finally settle, finally be okay, finally stop shifting. But even then, underneath all that, there was the quiet part of me noticing the truth. A new house doesn't erase old wounds. A swimming pool doesn't fix tension in a marriage. And a child always feels the undercurrent before the adults ever admit it. Still, for the moment, the pool felt like a gift, a break from chaos, a place where you could float, quiet your body, and forget the instability happening inside those walls. Remember this, children don't just witness life, they absorb it. Moving into that house, stepping into that pool, trying to make sense of the tension beneath the surface, it shaped the way I learned to survive. It shaped the way many of us learned to read the room before we ever learned to read words. Thank you for walking with me through this memory. Take a breath. Notice what came up for you as we continue uncovering the story with honesty, compassion, and strength. We revisit a childhood memory that seemed funny in the moment, but carried a very different meaning for someone involved. It was the summer we got the pool, the laughter, the splashing, the feeling of finally having something joyful to hold on to. But hidden inside that day was a moment of embarrassment for my younger brother, one that followed him far into adulthood. As we explore this story, we'll look at how children can share the same event and walk away with completely different emotional truths. The summer after we got the pool, everything felt lighter for a moment, sunshine, splashing, laughter. My younger brother and sister came to visit for the weekend, and for a little while, it felt like we were just a normal family having a normal summer day. We were all swimming and being silly, the way kids do when they finally feel free, and then it happened. My younger brother dove into the pool and came up without his swimming trunks. My older brother grabbed the swimming trunks, threw them into the yard, and before anyone could stop it, the family dog snatched them up and took off, running and circling the pool like he had won a prize. All of us were cracking up, doubled over laughing. It was one of those moments that kids think is hilarious, the kind of moment that becomes a funny story for everyone except the one it happened to. My younger brother was crying. We were too young to understand what it meant to feel exposed, embarrassed, or powerless in front of people who are supposed to feel safest. To us, it was a joke. To him, it was humiliation. And last year, when I went to visit the family, he brought it up again. After decades, I heard something deeper. How a single childhood moment could stay lodged in the heart. How something we saw as lighthearted become a memory that marked him. How children can hurt each other without understanding the impact until many years later. We were all children. We weren't trying to harm him, but the wound was real because children feel things with no filter, no armor, and no way to make sense of why their pain made others laugh. And the fact that he remembered it and felt safe enough to share it with me now says something even larger. He wasn't just remembering the moment. He was letting me know so I could see the part of him that still needed to be acknowledged. Thank you for sitting with me through this memory. What looked like harmless fun from the outside became a moment that shaped my younger brother in a way none of us recognized back then. This is the power of childhood, how our bodies hold on to the moments we didn't have language for. As you leave this episode, take a breath and remember. Sometimes healing begins when we allow old memories to be seen with new eyes. I'll meet you in the next chapter where we continue this journey with compassion, honesty, and understanding. In today's episode, we're stepping into one of those memories that stays sharp even when so much around us fades. I was 10 years old, sitting on the living room floor, holding my little new baby sister, trying to be gentle, trying to be good. In a split second, everything shifted. A cry, a misunderstanding, a moment that taught me more about fear, blame, and childhood innocence that I could ever explain at that age. As we revisit this scene, we're exploring what happens inside a child when safety is shattered not by chaos, but by someone who was supposed to protect them. I don't remember anything particularly good or bad from this period of my childhood, almost like my mind was silent for a while, until that day, Mom came home with my new baby sister. I remember sitting on the living room floor with her, this tiny little new life wrapped in a blanket. I was only 10 years old, trying to be careful, trying to be gentle, trying to be the good kid who didn't cause trouble. Then she started crying. A normal sound, a baby sound, nothing alarming, but in an instant, everything changed. My stepdad came running into the living room, fast, loud, explosive, and he yelled, "What did you do to her?" His face, his tone, the accusation, the shock of it all, it scared the daylights out of me. Because I loved my baby sister. Because I would never hurt her. Because I didn't even understand what was happening. Why a baby's cry suddenly meant I must have done something wrong. I was just 10. Sitting on the floor, being accused of something my heart couldn't even comprehend. Learning in one moment that safety inside that house wasn't guaranteed. Absorbing a message I didn't have words for yet. I was responsible for things beyond my control. Also, at any minute, someone can turn on you. Mom might have thought she brought home a new beautiful beginning, but for me, that moment planted fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being blamed, fear of being punished for simply existing near the wrong emotion. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was 10 years old, trying to love my baby sister, and I was met with aggression instead of protection. Again, thank you for sitting with me through this moment. What happened that day shaped how I learned to survive, how I learned to read danger, how I learned to hold myself responsible for things I never caused. If a memory like this surfaced for you while listening, take a deep breath. You were also a child trying to love, trying to do the right thing, trying to belong. And now as adults, we can go back and offer ourselves the safety and compassion we never received. As we continue unraveling these threads with honesty, gentleness, and the strength that comes from finally naming the truth. Next, we step into a moment of transition, a move that looked like growth from the outside, but carried a deeper emotional shift beneath the surface. After my little sister was born, our home suddenly felt too small, too crowded, too full of unspoken tension. So we packed our things and moved into a bigger house. More room, more space, more places to disappear into childhood silence. As we explore this next chapter, we'll look at what it means to outgrow a home, not just physically, but emotionally, and how children make sense of change they never asked for. The house we had been living in suddenly felt too small, too many bodies, too many emotions, too many undercurrents pressing against those walls. It was like the house itself couldn't hold everything that was happening inside our family anymore. So we packed up once again. I remember the feeling of leaving that house, not sadness, not excitement, just that familiar sense of another change, another shift I had no control over. The kind of house that was supposed to be an upgrade, a next step, a sign of something better. But for me, it was another reminder that stability was never guaranteed. Every time we moved, I learned to adjust. I learned to stay quiet. I learned to read the room before I ever entered it. Still, there was something about that bigger house. More space meant more distance, more hiding places, and more unspoken tension drifting through the hallways. It was the beginning of a whole new chapter, one filled with things I didn't yet have words for. Thank you for being here with me through this transition. I invite you to reflect on the places in your own story where life shifted without warning, where you adapted before you even understood why. As we continue walking through these memories with honesty, softness, and the strength that comes from finally telling the truth. As we move forward, we're stepping into a moment that no child should ever have to witness. The night when tension inside the home broke wide open. After we moved into the bigger house, the air had already grown heavy, but nothing prepared me for the sound of violence on the other side of my bedroom wall. This isn't just a story about fear. It's a story about how children learn to survive what they can't control. As we revisit this night, we do it gently, with honesty and compassion, for the child who had no power, no voice, and no safe place to turn. As we moved into the bigger house, the tension inside those walls grew thicker by the day. You could feel it in the air, silent, heavy, unpredictable. The kind of tension a child learns to notice long before adults admit anything is wrong. Mom and my stepdad started fighting more often. Arguments that started small and then escalated into something loud, sharp, and frightening. But nothing prepared me for the night everything snapped. I was lying in my bed, listening to the muffled sound of their voices rising in the other room. At first, it was just anger, the kind I'd learned to tone out. Then I heard something different in my mom's voice, fear. She said she was going to call the police. Before I could even process what was happening next, I heard it, the sound of him striking her with the telephone. A sickening, violent crack, then her cry, then chaos, then silence. I froze. 10, maybe 11 years old, lying in the dark, terrified, not knowing whether to get out of bed, not knowing if I was safe, not knowing what would happen next. My heart pounding so loud, I was afraid he could hear it from the next room. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I didn't even know children could call for help. I just stayed there, listening, absorbing every sound, hoping it would stop, praying she would be okay. That night changed something inside of me, because a child should never have to listen to their mother being hurt. A child should never have to wonder if they are next. A child should never be left alone to navigate fear that big. But I did, and I survived it. Thank you for walking through this memory with me. That night shaped how I learned to listen for danger, how I learned to stay small, and how I learned to protect myself in ways no child should have to figure out alone. If tonight's episode stirred anything in you, take a breath. You were not weak. You were not at fault. You were a child doing your best to survive the unimaginable. Stay with me as we continue to unfold this story with tenderness, truth, and the strength that comes from finally giving these moments a place to be heard. The morning I had to protect myself. Today we step into one of the most defining moments in my childhood. A morning when innocence collided with danger, and instinct became my only protection. Mom had already left for work. The house was still quiet, my baby sister still sleeping in their bed, and then came the moment every child should be spared, being awakened by a man who should have kept us safe, but instead became someone we had to survive. Here, we'll gently explore how fear shapes a child's body, how intuition becomes a shield, and how moments like this define the way we learn to protect ourselves and others long before we have the words to explain it. What happened in that house didn't just come in explosions. It came in moments that were quiet, calculated, and terrifying. It happened often when Mom was at work. We all knew the pattern. Then the moment the front door closed behind her, the house shifted, the air changed, we braced ourselves. But nothing prepared me for that one morning. Mom had left early on this morning. My little baby sister was asleep in their bed. And then he came into my room and woke me up. His voice was too calm, too normal, the kind of voice adults use when they're hiding something. He told me to get into his bed and Mom's bed with the baby. I was confused, but I did it because children obey, even when something feels wrong. I lay there next to my little sister, and then he crawled into the bed beside me. Something inside me snapped awake. A knowing, a terror, a warning bell only a child in danger can hear. Without thinking, without speaking, I climbed over my baby sister, protecting her as I escaped, and jumped out of that bed. My body moved faster than my mind. I bolted into the bathroom and locked the door. My heart was pounding so loudly I could barely hear him at first. He kept knocking, kept telling me to come out, saying he had to go to work, saying I needed to open the door. But I stayed, frozen, terrified, pressed against the door, holding the lock still with my hand, as if that tiny metal latch was the only thing keeping me safe. I don't know how long I stayed in the bathroom. Time gets strange when fear takes over. But finally, I heard the front door close. I waited. I listened. When I was sure he was gone, I came out, not for myself, but for my baby sister, because even at that age, I knew she needed me to protect her in ways no child should ever have to. Thank you for walking with me through this memory. What happened that morning was terrifying, confusing, and deeply wrong. And yet, the child, I was responding with courage, clarity, and instinctive wisdom. Locking myself in the bathroom wasn't fear, it was survival. It was protection. It was strength no child should ever have to find. And as you leave this episode, I hope you remember this. The younger you acted with unbelievable bravery, and now as adults, we get to honor that child by telling the truth, giving voice to the silence, and continuing this healing with compassion and power. Again, we step into another of the most defining and terrifying moments of my childhood. A moment when cruelty stopped being just anger and turned into something deeper, darker, and far more dangerous. It was a picture day at school, and like any child, I wanted to look nice. But the second I walked through that door from school, everything changed. In this episode, we explore how a simple school day turned into a moment of fear, instinct, and survival. How a younger girl learned to trust her body's warning signals long before she had the language to explain what was happening. There are moments in a child's life get burned in memory, not because they were loud, but because they were wrong in a way the body never forgets. It was picture day at school, so I wore a dress. I wanted to look nice. I wanted to feel pretty. Just a normal kid doing a normal thing. But the second I walked through the front door, he turned into something ugly. "Get in there and clean out the stove," he barked. No hello, no smile, just a command meant to control, to put me in my place. I did what I was told because kids like me didn't argue. While I scrubbed the inside of that stove, I could feel him watching me, that heavy, unsettling stare that made my skin crawl, even before I understood why. When I finished, he snapped again, "Now do the dishes." His voice was mean, deliberate, like he was waiting for something. I stood at the sink, washing dishes in my school dress, trying to disappear into the clinking of plates and running water. And then it happened. He came up behind me, too close, pressed himself against me. His hands were reaching for my hips. My whole body went stiff. A shock shot through me like my instincts knew before my mind could catch up. I jerked away from him as fast as I could, and I ran. Straight to the bathroom, locked the door. My heart was pounding, my hands were shaking, my breath felt stuck in my chest. I didn't know what he would do next. I didn't know if he would try to come after me. I only knew I had to stay hidden. I stayed in that bathroom until I heard my mom come home. Only then did I unlock the door. Only then did I breathe again. No child should ever have to be afraid in their own home. No child should ever have to protect themselves from the man who lives there. But I did. And my body knew exactly what to do. Get away, hide, survive. And I did survive. Thank you for being here with me through this chapter. That day marked a shift, a moment when fear taught me to move fast, hide fast, and protect myself in ways no child should ever have to. If this episode brought up anything for you, take a breath and remember, the younger you acted with wisdom and courage. You did what you needed to do to stay safe. And today, we honor that child by telling the truth, speaking what was once unspeakable, and stepping together into healing. Join me next time as we continue uncovering these moments with compassion, strength, and the power of being seen. We move on to the weekend visits that turn violent. Some weekends, my brother and sister would come visit us. You'd think those weekends would feel lighter. More kids, more laughter, more moments of being a family. But in that house, even weekends weren't safe. One of those visits turned into something none of us could ever forget. My stepdad was already in one of his moods, the kind where the air got tight, the house went quiet, and all of us kids instinctively shrank ourselves down, hoping to go unnoticed. But my brother wasn't invisible enough that day. The stepdad went after him, whipping the crap out of him, using his anger and his fist like it was the only language he knew. My younger sister, little, brave, but not understanding the danger, jumped in front of him trying to stop him. Just as a child trying to protect another child, as he turned on her, knocked the crap out of her too, hit her with the same cruelty he used on my brother, a grown man striking a young girl who only knew how to love, and the rest of us, we sat there in shock, frozen, silent, shaking on the inside, watching something we were too young to process and too powerless to stop. That moment wasn't just violence. It was trauma searing itself into every nervous system in that room. Every kid learned something that day, that love couldn't protect us, that bravery had consequences, that adults can be dangerous, and that no one was coming to save us. We were all just children. And what we witnessed should never have happened to any of us. Now we're going to move on to the day everything finally broke. Now we step into the moment when years of abuse, fear, and silence finally erupted into something none of us could have predicted. After enduring cruelty days after day, especially toward my older brother, there came a moment when the pain he had carried inside of him rose up and met the man who caused it. What happened that day wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about winning. It was about a breaking point, a moment when the child who had been beaten, belittled, and terrorized finally stood up for himself in the only way he knew how. In this episode, we'll talk about what it looks like when a child reaches the end of endurance and how one explosive moment became the doorway to freedom. As time went on, we learned to survive his abuse in the hours when Mom was at work. We learned the rhythms of danger. We learned when to stay quiet. We learned how to disappear. But eventually, something shifted. Something broke. And it didn't break inside the kids. It broke inside him. One day, the stepdad had to have a surgery to move a hemorrhoid. Mom picked him up from the hospital, helped him in the car, and brought him home. He came through the front door, sore, irritated, and full of the same venom he always carried. The very first thing out of his mouth was something ugly, directed straight at my older brother, the one he had tormented the most. By this time, my brother didn't swallow it. This time, after years of fear, humiliation, and pain, something inside of him rose up. He beat the stepdad's ass up the stairs, down the stairs, and back out the front door. It was like every blow he endured for the years came back out of him in one moment. My brother wasn't trying to be violent. He wasn't trying to win. He was breaking free. He was finally fighting back against the man who had tried to crush him. After that day, everything changed. The stepdad moved out, packed his things, and just like that, the man who had terrorized the house was gone. They divorced, the nightmare ended, and the air in that home finally loosened. But even after that, the emotional echo, what he had done, stayed inside all of us. Our bodies remembered, our hearts remembered, our childhoods remembered. This moment wasn't just about him leaving. It was the first real glimpse of freedom. The first breath without fear. The first time the power shifted and the children weren't the ones trembling anymore. My brother's strength that day wasn't violence. It was survival, finally pushing back. If something in today's episode touched your heart, I invite you to carry it with you. Let it guide you and let it soften the places that still ache. Healing is not a destination. It is a returning again and again to who you truly are. I am a licensed life coach, worked with a psychotherapist for 20 years, as well as a practicing RN. You can text me at deb@inwardboundshow.com, or we have a spot on Read It if you want to ask questions, and I may even answer your questions on the podcast. Remember, the two most important relationships, in my opinion, in our life is the one we have with our higher power, which is God for me, and the relationship you have with yourself. Until next time, keep walking inward, keep listening to your spirit, and keep choosing yourself. Inward Bound isn't a retreat, it's a return to truth, a return to parts of us we learned to silence. If this chapter resonated with you, honor that. There's nothing to fix right now. Healing begins with noticing, not repairing. Awareness is brave. Slowing down is brave. Listening is brave. Inward Bound Show opens the door to understanding our behaviors, our relationships, and our coping. And how come we act and react if triggered. A big shout out to my editor, Jordan. Chapter 8 is going to be about bullying. Stay tuned. This may have been in your story. I'm going to close by sending you more love, peace, joy, and happiness. God bless you.